So, welcome today. My name is Jonathan Varner, and I'm a product manager with AutoForm. I'm pleased to be here with Bill Pittman. Bill Pittman has written a few blogs here recently this year, and we thought we'd take an opportunity to kind of hear from Bill directly about a few of his ideas. So, before we get any farther, I'd ask Bill, please introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Bill Pittman. I'm Stamping Feasibility Manager of a global OEM. So I work for body and weight and vehicle design.
With how many years of experience?
A lot. 44 in the industry, 28 in forming analysis.
Very good. So one of the, four of the topics that really stood out in your blogs were related to what got kind of phrased as the Pittman 4 pitfalls.
Yeah.
So we have working without simulation proof.
Yep.
Forgetting about the big picture,
Yep.
how everything fits together. The third one, I believe, was unsatisfactory trial conditions.
Yep.
And then the last one dealt with correlation.
Yes.
So what I really like about those four items is they really cover kind of like the very beginning all the way through the end. And we probably don't have time today to kind of go through all of those things, but I think it'd be good to hear directly from you verbally about at least one of them. Like, so if we take the first one, which deals with working without simulation proof, what do you really mean? What did you mean by that?
Okay. So a lot of times, especially in a tryout event, right, if things aren't going as were previously planned, and there's a geometry proposal that a die maker may have, right, it's hard to envision the dynamic effects, right? Everything is really at that point a best guess. So it gets very costly to do weld and grind and hope. So I believe in using data to speak for it and prove it out virtually. It's much more efficient and it's less impact on the dies.
And I think I understood from your previous comments that you actually have done this like when you're at a die try. You go back to the office, you work something up either over lunch or whatever it may be. On the spot, more or less, you're able to make these kind of proofs.
Yes, I've done it on reinforcement stampings. I've also done it on door inner panels where a die maker had their development and they didn't account for some loose metal. So I went back in the office, worked up some geometry, some metal distribution geometry, simulated it using the model we had, and showing the A to B comparison and ultimately success. And that was what ended up going into the tool. And, without any of that guesswork.
So that has to be something you could really turn around fast in that situation. So
Exactly.
What kind of tools are you using to do that? I know AutoForm, but what specifically?
Yeah, so I use both CAD and AutoForm. For quick what ifs, I like to use AutoForm because it's got some nice tools that you can throw some rough geometry in there and get your your evaluation of concepts.
So like metal gainers,
Yep.
small changes to the addendum shape.
Exactly, yeah. Radius changes, gainers, even pull bars, anything that is a quick geometrical change that can, impact the flow of metal and the dynamic impacts. Right?
Okay. So that's a good example of like in the latter stages of development. So what about early upfront kind of evaluation? Because I know you're also looking at the first version of the parts for all the stamped parts for a vehicle.
Yes. So
how do you approach that specific situation with like having that simulation proof before you suggest things?
Yeah. So a lot of times product design is very early in concept, and some of the models come through and they've got very tight radii because that's a quick way to model, and we know that things are going to change later on. So I can take that part, work up a process, and then start the forming analysis. And when those failures occur that we would expect from those sharp radii, and go in AutoForm and just blow in a new radius or conceptually and work down what the minimal impact is to the product and see where we need to be.
Okay. And so you're using CAD and AutoForm Die Designer to do both of these? So how do you choose which one that you might use?
Whichever is going to be the quickest and the easiest. and sometimes I get a parametric model from my designers, so I'm going to stay within the CAD environment if I can.
Okay.
But for those what ifs, it's AutoForm is a great way to go.
Okay. So you're very selective. You're using the correct tool, I would say, for that specific case, and
Yeah.
you stay fluid with what you allow to be used.
Yes.
So
Yep.
whatever's fastest, whatever suits. Plus, I guess feeding that back to product then becomes kind of a key point too.
And
you
that's
can,
what I was going to say. Sometimes, if I do it in CAD, I can give them the CAD model right back.
Mhm.
If I do it in AutoForm, then I have to graphically represent it and say, hey, this is where we're at with this. These are the radii that worked, for
Okay.
example.
Now, since you're dealing with so many different parts early on in development, I can't imagine being so familiar with every single part process, how it's normally processed. So how much do you do with deciding that, okay, this time it's going to be this process, 3, 4, 5, whatever number of stations? How do you go about that? You use CAD for that as well, or do you use Die Designer then?
I use a little of both. So having a lot of experience in working specifically for product design for a while, right? I've gotten familiar with typical parts of a vehicle structure. So, I look at, what I can kind of envision the part in my mind. For example, I just had a meeting not long ago of a section of an A-pillar. So the question really came down to the effects of the cant rail. So I know this is a very long curved part, and I have to envision in my mind, how would I tip that part? What can I get away with? What are the impacts of that versus the body side that it mates to?
Okay. So in those cases, one change of one part cascades. You have to find a way to kind of deal with all of those additional changes, so you're not just
Absolutely.
always dealing with one part. You're dealing
Right.
with all the parts that it mates to.
Exactly.
And
Because I have to make them all successful.
Right.
So I want to make the least amount of pain on the fewest amount of parts.
I think that's a very nice, pragmatic way to kind of look at things, using the tools that are appropriate at that time, not constraining yourself to only one type of,
Right.
of tool that you're using.
Right. Staying
kind of-
fluid is key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think for the first topic, I think that's a pretty good description for what you meant and what was maybe some additional portrayal, what your approach is.
Sure.
I'm hoping that maybe in the future we can do some more follow-up kind of discussions on the other Pittman 4.
Yeah, I'd love to get into it.
But-
You're speaking my language.
But really appreciate your time today. And for those of you who have not watched the blog or read the blog's available on formingworld.com. You can look at the 2 articles from Bill, as well as many other topics. And we hope to have some more content from Bill in the future. With so many years in the industry, that's something that's very, very, very valuable. And we appreciate your time today. And thanks for stopping.
My pleasure. Great to be here. Thanks.